Okay, so 2021 Maths Mock Paper 2. Question 8 says match each of the sinusoidal functions below with its correct graph. Okay, so when we go down here, we see that there are 3 functions given. So we're going to take these one by one and see if we can match them to one of the functions. So this first one here, we're given a -1 out front. And now this number out front means where the center line is. So if we go back up to the graph and draw a line across at -1, we can clearly see that g of x has a center line at -1, and therefore we can reasonably conclude that this first function is g of x. Again, with the second one, this number out front means that the center line is going to be at 2. If we draw a rough line at 2, we see clearly that the function f of x has a center line at 2. So therefore we can conclude that the second function is equal to f of x. Now by process of elimination, we can say that this is h of x. But again, using the center line, if you needed to prove it to yourself, there's no number out front here, which means the center line is at 0. And as we can see here, the only graph with a center line at 0 is h of x. Okay, now part B says Mont Saint-Michel is a tidal island in Normandy, France. The island is just a few hundred meters from land. Historically, Mont Saint-Michel was only accessible when the tide dropped below mean sea level. A small garrison fended off a full attack by the English in 1433 by using the island's natural defensive position. It was later turned into a prison by King Louis XI. The tides vary greatly, with a difference of 14 meters between highest and lowest watermarks. The tides can be modelled using a sinusoidal function. The highest watermark occurs at midnight and the lowest watermark occurs at 6 a.m. during a certain month. So the first question says, from the information above, write down the amplitude of the tides. So we were told there is a difference of 14 meters, which means that the amplitude is going to be 14 divided by 2, giving us an answer of the amplitude is equal to 7 meters. Now part 2 says, write down the period of the tides. So we know that the highest point is at midnight and the lowest point is at 6 a.m. So therefore, when it's going to be the highest point again, is at 12 p.m. Therefore, we can say that the period is equal to 12 hours. Okay, then part 3 says, taking midnight as the start of the tidal movement, choose the correct sinusoidal function to represent the tidal movement and explain your answer fully. So, because we know that the highest tide is at midnight, that means we know that the function does not start at its center line, which means it is a cos function. So writing that out, we can say that the highest point is at midnight, therefore the function t equals b cos ct is the correct function. Okay, now part 4 says, taking the x-axis as sea level, use the information above to sketch the action of tides for a day. Okay, so we know that the amplitude is 7, so that means the highest point here is going to be 7, and the lowest point at 6 a.m. is going to be -7. And we know that the period is 12, so again at 12 we're going to be at 7, at 18, -7, and then at 24, 7 again. And then all we have to do is join these points together in the shape of a cos function, and we have answered the question. Okay, so it should look something like that. As it said, just to sketch, it doesn't need to be very perfect. It just needs to have the right shape of a cos function. Okay, then part 5 says, using your graph, determine for how many hours a day Mont Saint-Michel was accessible. So we were told in the question that Mont Saint-Michel was accessible when the tide was below mean level. So that means it would be here and here. So we can see from our graph that it'd be 3 a.m. until 9 a.m. and also 3 p.m. until 9 p.m. So the difference in that is 6 hours plus 6 hours, which means it would have been accessible for 12 hours a day. Okay, and then part 6 says, at what times during the day is the tide 1 meter below sea level? So if you go back to the graph and draw a line here at -1, you can see we have some points here. Now, because we've sketched it, our answer is going to be quite rough, but we can make a rough estimate of about 3:15 a.m., 8:45 a.m., 3:15 p.m., and 8:45 p.m. And that is question 8 all finished.